World War II, 1945. The most powerful military commanders of Nazi Germany, men who once dined in palaces and commanded millions, are now prisoners of war. But what happened when these German Field Marshals tasted their first meal in American captivity shocked everyone, including themselves. As the Third Reich crumbled in the spring of 1945, Allied forces captured some of Germany's highest-ranking military officers. These weren't ordinary soldiers. These were Field Marshals, the elite of Hitler's war machine. Men like Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, and numerous other generals found themselves prisoners at facilities like the Ashcan detention center in Luxembourg and later at facilities in Germany itself. These officers had spent years living in relative luxury, even during wartime. They had access to fine wines, elaborate meals prepared by personal chefs, and the privileges of their rank. Even as German civilians starved and soldiers survived on meager rations, the officer corps maintained their traditional lifestyle. But now, everything had changed. The first time German POWs were served American military rations, something unexpected happened. Instead of complaints, there was silence. Then, murmurs of disbelief. According to multiple historical accounts, several captured German officers made statements expressing genuine surprise at the quality and quantity of American prison food. One often cited reaction from German officers was that the food was better than what they had been eating in their own officers' mess halls back in Germany. What were they eating? Standard U.S. Army rations, nothing fancy. We're talking about fresh bread and butter, real coffee, not the chicory substitute Germans had been drinking, canned meat and vegetables, potatoes and gravy, desserts like cake or pudding, fresh fruit when available. To understand their reaction, you need to understand what Germany was experiencing. By 1944 to 1945, the German economy was collapsing. Even high-ranking officers were dealing with severe food rationing, substitute ingredients, sawdust in bread, acorn coffee, shrinking portions, limited variety, increasing scarcity of basic items. The contrast revealed something profound about the two nations at war. The United States had an agricultural and industrial capacity that seemed almost incomprehensible to European officers. American soldiers, and even prisoners, ate better than German officers. This wasn't propaganda, this was reality. Consider these facts. American POWs were fed according to the Geneva Convention, receiving 2,500 to 3,000 calories per day. This was often more than German civilians, and sometimes even German soldiers were receiving. The U.S. could afford to feed prisoners, well because of its massive agricultural output. American logistics meant fresh supplies arrived regularly. Some German officers couldn't believe that American privates, the lowest-ranking soldiers, ate meat regularly. In the German army, meat was increasingly reserved for officers as the war dragged on. These reactions from captured German field marshals revealed more than just a difference in food quality. They exposed the fundamental weakness of the Axis powers. Germany and Japan had gone to war with economies that couldn't sustain total war. They relied on conquest to feed their war machines. When those conquests stalled and reversed, everything began to collapse, including the dinner table. Meanwhile, America's industrial might meant that it could simultaneously feed its own civilian population better than ever before, supply millions of soldiers overseas, provide aid to allies through Lend-Lease, maintain proper nutrition even for enemy prisoners. The German officers' surprise at American prison food was really surprise at American abundance. They had been told by Nazi propaganda that America was weak, decadent, and divided. The reality they encountered was very different. One meal told them more about why Germany lost the war than any military briefing could have. Historical records from interrogation centers like Ashcan and Dustbin, code names for facilities where high-ranking German POWs were held, document these reactions. Intelligence officers noted that good treatment, including adequate food, was part of the interrogation strategy. Well-fed prisoners were more likely to talk, less likely to be hostile, and more willing to provide information. But the strategy also served another purpose, demonstrating American values. The U.S. wanted to show that even in victory, Americans followed the rules of war. Fair treatment of prisoners was both morally right and strategically smart. The story of German Field Marshals praising American prison food might seem like a small footnote in World War II history, but it symbolizes something larger. Wars aren't just won on battlefields. They're won in factories, farms, and supply chains. They're won by nations that can sustain their people and their military simultaneously. When those proud German officers sat down to their first meal as prisoners and found it better than their own banquets, they learned a lesson about power that no amount of military strategy could teach. Sometimes, the most devastating weapon isn't a bomb or a bullet. Sometimes, it's simply a well-stocked kitchen. If you enjoyed this story from history, like and subscribe for more fascinating tales from World War II and beyond.